What's up, guys? Welcome to SpawnCast. I believe it's episode 14, but don't quote me on that. It's been a long week. I'm joined with actually a lot of people. I was going to invite like 2 people, and then everybody ended up on here, which is fine. I like having a lot of people on here, but we're going to go from the left to the right. We have, as usual, Max from Dreamcast Guy. How are things, Max?
Fantastic as always.
Good. And then from there, we have the ever-busy Evan, who's working hard on that Splatoon review.
Yeah, so much more to do.
Good. And then back from the brink, we have Philip.
Hey, how's it going?
It's good to see him back.
It is fantastic to be back. I've missed all of you, so thank you.
And then we have Jesse from Game Over Jesse. Once again, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here once again. I think this is my 3rd appearance, so It's great seeing everybody again.
You were actually on the first SpawnCast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then one recently.
Yep. And then we have Sean from RGT85.
Hello.
How are things?
Man, good. Just hanging out. Glad to be here.
You have your power back.
Yes, we have power, so we're in better shape than a few hours ago.
Do you have air, AC?
No, but I have a portable AC unit that works really well, and I told the landlord, I said, "You're gonna pay me back for this, and then if I buy this house in a couple months, I'm taking $5 grand off the asking price." And she was like, "Okay, I'm sorry."
You gotta do AC, right?
Yeah.
Would it make you feel any better if I held the microphone up to the vent right above me?
I got a fan here. I got a fan right now. It's pretty mellow out, so it's not bad tonight.
Yeah, so we had, obviously a lot just happened earlier today. For everyone who probably watched E23, I did a live stream. There was like 1,100 of you guys there with me, so I know some of you guys probably saw it. And some big things happened. People are already saying it in the chat. Kingdom Hearts, yes. We did get some Kingdom Hearts information. We saw some Spider-Man stuff that wasn't like mind-blowing, but we did find out that it sounds like they're going to do something that most of the Spider-Man games have not done yet, which is focus on Peter Parker, it sounds also. So they're going to have a focus on his, obviously his secret identity, and then Spider-Man. Maybe even go so far that you play as Peter Parker and then you actually change into Spider-Man at times. But they showed, I know, Max, you said you watched a good bit of it. Did you see the trailer where they showed his room, like Peter Parker's room?
Yeah, and it really kind of gave me a vibe of the new Telltale Batman games. They really focus on the fact that Batman is also Bruce Wayne. Both of these identities are actually fighting crime. So I definitely think that there's probably going to be maybe even entire whole missions where we're trying to go around and be Peter Parker in a way that supports Spider-Man. So yeah, man, I got me even more excited if I could be.
Yeah, maybe they'll do more like with his main job where you're taking pictures and stuff.
Yeah, dude, I would love that. I'm a big original Dead Rising fan, and I love going around and snapping pictures and stuff. So it'd be cool if we had some sort of like a bonus or level up system like that.
Evan, let me ask you, because they talked about Ultimate Spider-Man on the stream a little bit, and you were trying to tell me a little bit about it, the comic. But they started kind of pulling bits from there. What exactly happens in Ultimate Spider-Man? Because I'm not super familiar.
I'm also not as versed with it as well. I just know bits and pieces of it, which, most of what I know still isn't even that canon, because they kind of use Ultimate Spider-Man in the animated series, but it's not the same, and it's just back and forth. So I just have bits and pieces of it. Nothing too straight up, like this is everything kind of knowledge on Ultimate Spider-Man.
Because right now, I know I could definitely ask Sean about this because you're like kind of a retro gaming fan. But my favorite Spider-Man is still Spider-Man 2 on like the PS2, the Xbox, or the GameCube. Yeah, I don't know if a lot of you guys like that too. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So it's like the web slinging was perfect, where you're slinging web, and it's actually attaching to buildings. Whereas Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, you can swing through Central Park, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I really liked Spider-Man 2 a lot. That was definitely my favorite Spider-Man. But this one, I got to say, with what they're doing, because they also put a big emphasis on web slinging, even talking about older Spider-Man games like Spider-Man 2, this one might replace that one if it really is this good. So I'm looking forward to, still no date. It's 2018. But what are you guys' thoughts? Jesse, you're more of a Zelda, Nintendo fan and everything, but what are your thoughts on Spider-Man that you've seen so far?
So far, it looks like it does stand out compared to, usually we used to get a new Spider-Man game every year or every other year. There was a lot of bad ones and a couple of good ones. This new Spider-Man game, since it's only being worked on for one console, well, two if you count the PS4 Pro, it seems like they don't have to worry about trying to optimize it for every system, and then we get like a mediocre story and mediocre gameplay with tons of missions that's like, hey, save this woman from this burglar, or chase this car down that was stolen, something like that. Hopefully it'll have a story that actually connects you to the game, and they'll be able to focus on that instead of focusing on how can we make this run as best as possible on all 5, 6, 7 of these different consoles.
That's a good point, because they did make they really stressed, like in the trailer, that they need to focus on Peter Parker as much as they focus on Spider-Man. So they'll probably try to get you really interested in the character that puts on the mask rather than just Spider-Man, which kind of humanizes him a little bit too, obviously. So then you actually care about him. But I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It's just we don't know when it's coming out. It's just at some point. They showed us some Star Wars stuff as well. More about the single player. Star Wars multiplayer is still Star Wars multiplayer for Battlefront. It's very similar, not exactly the same as first one, but it's the same idea. You know, it's almost like Battlefield mixed with Star Wars. But the single player, did you guys see a lot of the single player for this? Because it actually looks like it could be like good, like really good. Because it's they showed in the trailer where it starts right when the second Death Star explodes. Like, because they look up and see it in the sky, and they talk about how it's apparently going to bridge. Not completely, but work to bridge the gap between episodes 6 and 7. And it looks awesome. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on the campaign, but so far I'm interested in it at least. It's definitely better than the campaign in the first one, which was none.
Or it's definitely better than the campaign of the original games, because I'm not sure if people remember those, but those were basically just like really weird vertical slices. It was just like one chapter out of a bunch of random Star Wars novels, basically, whereas this is one cohesive story. I like the idea of like us getting to play as a bad guy who thinks they're a good guy. That's something they never did in any of the Star Wars games. They don't even like hint at that in any of the Star Wars movies. So I'm glad that we're finally seeing somebody who is part of the Empire, who fully thinks that the Empire is the good guys, who's like, okay, cool, the Empire's gone, but I'm just going to keep fighting because that's all I've ever done my entire freaking life. So, man, I'm ready to see how it plays and how it feels.
My only go ahead, Phil. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I actually didn't catch any of the D23 conference, but I was wondering, did they show off any of the Amy Hennig Star Wars game that she's working on?
No.
That's still just kind of under wraps completely.
Yeah, super under wraps. I've even heard like leaked reports that it's actually super pre-alpha. Like, I think it's one of the things where it's like they know what it will be, but right now it doesn't exist for all intents and purposes.
They did show us some of those sweet Star Wars mobile games.
Oh, nice.
Goody.
Just what we need. Some more
microtransactions.
Yeah,
and then we jump from Star Wars, and then we jump to Kingdom Hearts, which is what everyone was looking for, obviously, when they got there, because when they first talked about the 3 things that were going to be there, the biggest reaction was by far for Kingdom Hearts. And the big thing was they show us the new world, and it's Toy Story, which is such a cool idea. Like, I saw that and I was like, because when I first saw them, I was like, this they're not really doing Toy Story. And then they're doing Toy Story. And the advantage now is how the strength of these consoles, it looks exactly like the movie from Toy Story. Like, if you watch the trailer, go back and watch it, it looks exactly like if you were in the movie theater watching it on like Toy Story 3, for example. But it sounds like they pulled in Pixar, and Pixar is going to work with Disney unique like take on Toy Story in the Kingdom Hearts world, I guess, where Heartless invade. But is that like because a lot of people were thinking Star Wars, but here comes Toy Story. I mean, is there any other world they really could have put in there, or is Toy Story like the one that everyone has been waiting for? Because it was rumored in Kingdom Hearts 2, I think, even.
It makes sense. I wanted Star Wars, of course. I wanted Star Wars, or I wanted a Marvel world. But seeing Toy Story, I think it was smart of them to come out with Toy Story, even if they end up adding more worlds later on. I think it's really smart to show off Toy Story because it's such a well-understood property. And I've already noticed people really analyzing the trailer and seeing all these little hidden extra details that didn't exist in the earlier games. Like people were showing that on the health bars, your character actually like slowly slumps over more and more as they get lower health. And somebody zoomed in on the fact that when Woody is nearly dying, he actually like hangs out of the health meter. Like, I'm so exhausted. So it's a good way of showing like, okay, we're going to make this more emotional than previous Kingdom Hearts may have been. So. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it looks good. And then we got the release date for 2018. So it's next year, apparently, despite all of the hiccups, all of the speed bumps that they've gone through. I guess it's coming next year. I mean, do you guys really think it's going to be released in 2018 with everything we've heard about it? It seems like, I already see Sean shaking his head like, no, that's not happening. What do you think? You think it's going to be pushed? Do you think they're going to come out with an apology next year and say sorry?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what they do. Like, it's hard for me. Like, it's fun to look at the game and, you know, Kingdom Hearts and the Final Fantasy VII remake, but I can't get excited about games that I know I won't be playing in at least a year. So, like, it looks great, but, I mean, I don't know. Like, there's so much that can happen between now and then with the game. So, you know, it's cool, but no, it won't be out in 2018.
Fair enough. What do you think? Do you think it'll be out? Do you think it'll make that 2018 release date, Philip?
I think it will. I agree with Sean. Like, it's hard for me to get excited about a game so far ahead of time, but at the same time, I don't think Square is really in the business of like making promises they can't keep anymore, especially with like the kerfunkel that was Final Fantasy 15. I mean, that game took forever to come out. I mean, how many transformations did it go through? So I think that from now on, they've kind of learned from that. And for them to sort of make this like, you know, big release date ahead of a time, you know, assumption that it's going to come out, or, you know, claim that it's coming out in 2018 is pretty bold of them at this point. But I think if they're doing it, they're serious about it. So.
Sure. I mean, the hope is that it does come out. They also said there are more announcements to come. I think a lot of people were hoping for a Switch announcement, and I just don't know how that would be possible since Kingdom Hearts has been in development for how long? Like it's been a long time since, like, obviously it was supposed to originally be on the PS3. I just don't know how it would have made that Switch release. If it does end up making the Switch release at some point, it would be probably a year after it releases on the other consoles, just because they need time to port it over and make sure everything works. It sounds like this game is going to be a really big game, so it's you know, it's going to take time. I think a lot of people would like to see it portable. Like, we look at every game now and we're like, well, the Switch is portable. I would love it to be portable, but like a game like Persona could obviously be on the Switch, but there's licensing, there's exclusivity, there's all that stuff. So, but we'll get other games. You know, Shin Megami is going to the Switch, so there's other ones. But I want to talk. There's two things that you guys brought up before we even came on SpawnCast here. One is with Sean, which we'll talk about yours first, Sean. You had an interesting video the other day where you talked about retro games and YouTubers. And do you want to explain to the people what you exactly talked about real quick, so we can kind of little intro?
Yeah, so I was just scrolling through my Facebook feed at work, and someone was talking, like showing pictures about, you know, yard sales from 2007, 2008, and then they were saying that, you know, since like 2014, yard sales have gone to crap, and that you can't get good deals at yard sales anymore, and YouTube is to blame because of the glamorization and the popularizing of retro gaming channels. And I was like, okay, no, you're wrong. And we got into this whole big thing about, it's sort of just pointing the blame at YouTubers, and I'm like, that's so disingenuous. Like, first off, you're giving YouTubers way too much credit by saying something like that. It's more of the rise in nostalgia, the fact that people, that are, late 20s to early 40s can afford to buy the games that they had when they were a kid, or the games they wanted when they were a kid. It has to do with, the rise of cell phones and whatnot. Like 2007, 2008, you couldn't whip out your smartphone and check an eBay price of something. Nothing has a value unless you assign a value to it. If someone is willing to pay X amount of dollars for something, that becomes the new value of it. So, I mean, and plus you also have to factor in, people are throwing away video games, old video games break and stuff like that. There's probably, in the past 10 years, there's not going to be as many video games out there. More people are collecting, so it's going to be harder to find these things. I just thought it was just such a blanket statement to say, oh, well, YouTube is a big problem with the cause of, ruining retro prices. And it's like, get over yourself. Like, okay, let's say that it is doing it. Let's say that it is, ruining retro prices. Well, it's also making conventions. It's also making, people money. It's also making people being able to live out their dreams and, connect with other people who like retro video games, who might have felt, maybe they felt stupid. They didn't feel like anyone else was like them. So it's like the positives far outweigh any monetary value anyways. And that's my rant on that.
Yeah, I fully agree with the scarcity argument more than anything. Of like, we now live in an age where people do want to go back and play these old games, but they're hard to find. And so if you find a Super Nintendo in good condition, hey, I could probably get $60 for this. You're not gonna you're like, oh man, here's another Super Nintendo. I've seen 5 Super Nintendos. I'm gonna sell it for $5. So I think scarcity is probably a bigger issue than just YouTubers talking about how awesome Alien vs. Predator is on the Super Nintendo.
Sure. Yeah, no, scarcity is big. I mean, Evan, you can pretty much attest to that too at the store we worked at.
Well, yeah, I think between you and me, we can't even count the amount of people, and it kind of sucks in the reverse, I guess, because you have so many people bringing in games that are just horrible, that actually hold no value, but because it's old, it's like, oh, that has to be worth a couple grand, right? And no, what are you even talking about? So it's kind of a bit of a back and forth, and it is sort of everything. It's definitely not just YouTube. It's TV shows like Storage Wars and stuff that have really pushed that. At least the idea of old things being expensive into people's minds, even though that's not actually the case. You have to have the history behind it and everything and know all of that. So, I mean, what me and John have dealt with, we had a guy, I thought he traded in a classic Xbox, like the original, and like 30 games, and almost expected exactly what he paid for it day one, but this was like halfway through the 360's life. So.
Yeah, he wanted like $250 for it or something.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. If you go back and watch Storage Wars is a good point. If you go back and watch Storage Wars, there are so many episodes where there's a couple where they have like an original Nintendo and they're like, I think this is worth $5,000. I got to get it praised.
Oh yeah, they're so ridiculous.
And they get there and it's like, I'll give you $10 for it. And it's been called out a lot, but yeah, scarcity is a big deal. But I think the biggest blame is too. It's the internet and eBay. eBay is like the worst for this because people will bid, and then if like somebody who wants to sell from a flea market, like that's the other problem. People at the flea market selling can pop their phone out and double check something they just got, and they're like, "Oh, it's $50. I was going to put it as $10. I'm going to put it as $50 now, even though I'm selling on dirt." And that's, you got to remember that a lot of I'll go to the flea market sometimes, and some of those games are more expensive at the flea market than an actual retail establishment inside. And it's like, you guys are selling outside on top of a lawn. You should probably mark it down a little bit, and they don't. And so you get stuff like Mario Sunshine they want like $40 for, but it's like sun faded completely. And you're like, well, I don't want it for $40. I'll give you a 20 for it. But
my old roommate used to collect VHS. He literally had about 3,000 or 4,000 VHS tapes, and so whenever he was looking for the really rare ones that are worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, he would go out and check all the flea markets. And he used to just find he knew nothing about video games, but he knew I liked video games. He was just, I know my roommate likes video games, so he used to come back with just literally fistfuls of Sega Saturn games. Just he would find like stacks of loose Sega Saturn games that they were selling for 25 cents each. So I have like probably 50 super rare Sega Saturn games that he used to just give to me, where he's like, yeah, it was $5. Here's Virtual Fighter Kids. Like, okay, cool, thank you. Because people just didn't know. It was before eBay was so prolific.
One thing that is unfortunate, though, is that we do live in a day and age where we can't just walk into, or most places we can't just walk into a store to find this stuff. We have to go to the internet and, find these retro style games and accessories or hardware. It would be nice to have like more mom and pop shops throughout the area, or wherever you live, that you could go and visit and actually pick up and touch some of this stuff. But unfortunately, it's the age of new media.
Get excited, because in 10 years you're not going to be able to walk into a store and buy any video games.
Yeah.
Just the way that GameStop and Game Over in UK and Walmart will probably give them up eventually. You're going to have to just go online and Amazon and buy them all the time, or just download them digitally. I mean, what's 10 years from now? 2027? So, I mean, what was 10 years ago today? 2007, when you weren't really downloading games, you were buying everything physically. So we're halfway there now. I mean, honestly, if it was up to Sony and Microsoft and everyone had good enough internet, we wouldn't have disk drives in the next systems.
Yeah.
I mean, they almost tried that already. So
Yeah, there was the rumor that the first prototype Xbox One apparently did not have a disk drive.
Well, no, there's not even a rumor. They said that out loud at an E3. They were like, "That's what it is."
Well, there's that. This is a slight aside. Did you know if they accidentally mailed that prototype to somebody?
Really, I didn't know that. That's funny.
I was doing research for a video that I never ended up making, but apparently they were so paranoid of somebody they were so afraid of Sony spying on them at the time that they were hiding their prototypes in random boxes in factories. So they put the prototype, the first ever Xbox One, in a laptop box, and somebody bought that laptop, and so they just picked it up and mailed it out. And apparently the guy got it and was like, I don't know what to do. And so apparently Microsoft paid him like a couple $1,000s to just not talk to anybody about it.
Yeah, wow.
I remember reading an article on that. I think they sent it's been a few years since I read it, but if I'm remembering correctly, they sent a representative to pick up the Xbox One personally, and then they gave him a brand new Xbox 360 as a thank you.
Well, and it was weird. He took a picture of it, and the picture's out online. It was weird. It was like a jet white giant box with like taxi checkerboarding on half of it. It's like, what the hell were you making?
Did they send it to him before the Xbox One was out?
Yeah. Yes. No, not only before it was out, before it was announced.
Yeah,
that's what he literally had no idea. No discs would even go on it, but he opened it up and he was like, what the hell? And so that's why he literally just called like, hello, Daddy Microsoft. I think you sent me something that's not yet real.
Wow,
that's crazy.
That's insane. But yeah, so retro games, I do think it's just the future we're going to live in soon, where everybody can just check prices. They'll slowly degrade and disappear, and there's just fewer and fewer. Like I said, when Evan and I first started working at that retro store that we worked at, the game store, just to put in perspective, Super Mario World was $7.99. This is back in like 2009, I think. And now it's like $30 on eBay all day for Super Mario World. So I think Earthbound at the time may have been $100, I think.
Jesus.
So you see how quickly they changed. We had what was that game on the Dreamcast, Evan? Was it Egg on the Dreamcast?
Yeah, Egg.
Elemental Gimmick Gear.
I think we had 4 of them, and they were $10 a piece complete. And you can look them up now for yourself. They are a little more expensive than that now.
I got Skies of Arcadia on the Dreamcast for $19 in 2009, and now it's like one of the most expensive games of my collection.
Yeah, it is. I think we had Phantasy Star episodes 1 and 2 on the GameCube, and I think that was $14.99 complete at the time when we had it.
Now that goes for about 70 or 80.
You know, dude, it's crazy how fast things jump. But even worse is like CDs, like discs. Those are going to degrade over time fast. That's why GameCube is like so expensive now, man. Like getting a good GameCube collection, Fire Emblem on there, good luck. Like it's not happening. But let me. So Max, you had a good video also where you talked about the PS5.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to explain that?
So the point I was trying to make is right now, for y'all don't know, Michael Pachter, he's like this really, really famous video game market analysis guy. He's been really on the money for a lot of his predictions, but he's also been pretty off base sometimes. And he thinks that we're going to get a PlayStation 5 as early as 2019. So I made a video over on the Dreamcast Guide channel kind of breaking down that I think that's a really bad idea. It just seems like it's way, way too early. I think that would be, 6 years for this console cycle, but man, I don't know. I think this needs to be a long console cycle, because when you think about it, the Xbox 360 was on store shelves for 9 years as the main console. So it seems like it's too soon to try and already be trying to replace the PlayStation 4. I mean, there's over 60 million of these consoles in homes now. You're basically saying, okay, everybody, now trade that in and get a new system. So I don't know. If that's real, Sony is making a very bad move.
Sure. So what do you guys think exactly here? A PS5 in 2019, is that too soon, or are you guys ready for a new system now?
I know that we've been hearing like a lot of analysts saying that the console cycles are going to get shorter and shorter, and that, you know, we're going to start seeing consoles coming out sooner. But I definitely think that with these sort of mid-cycle refreshes that we've been getting with the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, that to me almost feels like it breathes new life into that system, because they're all of a sudden the company is like, you know, whether it's Sony or Microsoft, it's like, you know, we're pushing all these new games with it and some new features, and the old system's getting some updates too, and it's like, we don't really need it. It extends it a couple of years, so I really don't think we need a PS5 in 2019. I think we're good until like 2020 at least. So it's my take on it.
What do you think, Jesse?
Yeah,
I think if they were to release one this soon, 2019 does kind of make sense. They've talked about PS4 Pro and Xbox One X kind of being a half step. So will this next iteration, if it does come in 2019, there was a quote from Microsoft where they were talking about the PS4 Pro and comparing it to the then Xbox Scorpio. And they said that Sony released the best console that you could make in 2016 for that price point. And then they said the Xbox One or the Xbox Project Scorpio, whatever. It wasn't Xbox One X then. Confusing name, by the way. But they said that they were going to be releasing the best console you could release for the price point in 2017. And I think that would be exactly what the next generation of consoles would be, is just whatever the best console they can put out in 2019 is. So would it be enough in 2-3 years time to separate it enough from the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X to where it does look like a brand new console that isn't just the same thing the PS4 Pro is to the PlayStation 4, to where it's just like maybe twice as powerful or enough to let you play or experience some games in 4K, but then it struggles to play other games in 4K. Maybe the next hardware generation will be the consoles that can play everything in 4K at 60 frames without having to bring the graphics down a little bit or the frames slow down to 30 or even 20 during intense moments. So I don't know if 2 years would be enough time for them to actually separate themselves from these half-step consoles. But if they do, I wouldn't mind. I just want to make sure that it's enough that it actually gets developers excited to work on it, instead of just being like, okay, now we have to make this PS5 version, this PS4 Pro version, as well as this PS4 version. Or would they just cut off the PS4 and have it work with PS4 Pro and PS5? These half-step consoles introduced a lot of stuff that some developers might not be happy with. And then you have, like, whenever the PS4 first launched, there was games like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty that had the PS3 versions and the PS4 versions. So would the third-party games be working on all three of these consoles, or would it be working on just the PS5?
Right. Okay. That's a good question, because I think they will probably move to backwards compatibility now that they run on an x86. I think backwards compatibility is almost guaranteed at this point. But let me ask Sean, what are your thoughts here on this console generation possibly moving on?
First off, Pactor can kiss my ass. He blocked me on Twitter.
Did he really? What'd you say to him?
I made a video calling him a piece of shit, and I sent it.
Well, wow, okay.
You're blocked. Yep.
But
rumor has it people don't like that.
What made you mad about him?
I don't even remember. He said something disrespectful about Iwata dying, and I was just like, dude, you're such a scumbag.
What did you say about the Oddworld guy?
Oh, I should have went after him too, but I don't know. I just, for some reason, I didn't. But I think 2019 is way too soon. I never really thought about the fact about what Jesse was talking about, how are they going to support the PS4, the PS4 Pro, and the PS5? Like, it's so stupid. I don't like the mid consoles. I think they're stupid. I'm not a fan of them. Like, it just seems like, I understand there have been, mid consoles, but it's never been like really differential, like where it's like, okay, well, this game will run so much better and look so much better on the midlife console than it is the other one. So I'm not a fan of midlife consoles. I think to me, this generation has been honestly one of the weaker generations in the grand scheme of things, because nothing really has evolved. Nothing, like, look at every console generation. There's always been a nice jump. Even your launch day titles, from PS1 to PS2, PS2 to PS3, and now we're just like starting to reach this point where it's like PS3 to PS4, the jump wasn't that big, and I say that as a PS4 owner, like nothing really wowed me or anything.
You're going to see that a lot going forward, by the way.
well, so I would say my rebuttal to that, and it's because I've actually tried to make that point before, and people actually push back and say this is actually just a new generation of add-on content, where for the first time we're able to get our games that we buy now keep being playable. Like that existed a little bit in the PS3 generation, but now if you buy an RPG, you know that it's going to keep getting extra levels and extra dungeons and sweet bikini outfits for all the ladies and dudes. And that's something that wasn't really available like it was in any other generation. So if there's anything new that's added in the PS4, Xbox One era, I think it's that.
Which is fine, but I mean, it's just another way for people to release a half-assed product. Like, oh, you know, we'll add content later, and it's becoming more and more prevalent. And I don't know.
Mass Effect kind of exemplified that.
Exactly.
Well, but I would also say just because I think like Last of Us, I consider Last of Us one of the best games ever made, and then the DLC for that completely changes the game and adds such an amazing extra added element to the entire world, the entire story. And in previous generations, we would have just gotten the original story, which is fine. But having that extra piece that could only exist in this console generation was amazing and makes it 50 times better for me. So that's my one rebuttal. Sorry.
And while I agree with that, it's not that's not the standard. That's an exception. You know, most of the time you don't get something of that quality to make it worthwhile. And because of that, you have people taking advantage. Like, okay, we're still at a point where we're trying to push 4K gaming, yet you can't get 60 frames per second on every damn game. It's like, okay, you need to slow down. It's almost like when your brain goes faster than your mouth goes. You know, you're getting too far ahead and getting too crazy with these ideas, but you still can't have, like, give me 1080p 60 frames per second. I'm happy. I'm sure a lot of people are happy. The percentile of people that wouldn't be happy is way smaller than the people that would be happy. But no, we're trying to push 4K. We're trying to push virtual reality. We're trying to push midlife consoles. Jesus Christ, can I have 60 frames per second as a standard?
You see that today, especially with the Splatfest that's going on. People are even saying in the comments they really liked the smoothness of that game. And then you see Mario Odyssey at 60 frames, ARMS at 60 frames, Mario Kart. It's weird because I've said this on Twitter. It seems like it's Nintendo who's pushing frame rate over resolution right now. So they're kind of taking that road as opposed to Sony and Microsoft, who don't seem to have a problem with 30 frames if they can get even a checkerboarded 4K. And it seems a little odd that is kind of like, it's almost like roles reversed almost. I don't know. It feels weird that it's Nintendo trying to push a very smooth game as opposed to you have Sony and Microsoft over there really trying to push the resolution numbers. I guess it's easier to put 4K on the outside of the box than 60 frames because even though I don't believe them, there's a lot of people that say I can't see 60 frames.
Well,
and I don't believe that at all.
Yeah, I mean,
no,
go ahead.
With Splatoon 2, they went with like an adaptive resolution for that game, right? So it stays locked at 60 frames per second, but they'll scale the resolution up and down, which I think was a smart move. And that's exactly what Microsoft did with Halo 5, right? And that's basically to appease the competitive community, I guess, to sort of keep gameplay smooth and, you know, graphics can take a hit, which isn't a big deal. But I guess that, you know, with Nintendo and the Switch not being a 4K compatible system, they don't have to worry about that. They don't have that issue. But as far as like what Sony is concerned with, as far as like attempting, you know, 4K this year as well as VR, it seems like they just threw out a bunch of stuff at us, and they just wanted to see what would stick and kind of what direction we went in. It's like, okay, I guess more people are going with 4K, so we're going to push more 4K stuff, and we're going to pull back a little bit with the PSVR stuff, which is unfortunate because I actually think PSVR is a great product. But yeah, I don't know. Like, and I was really surprised to see that Microsoft didn't do anything with VR. So that was really interesting. But it just goes to show you where the like kind of interest is going with people. People are more interested in 4K, better graphics on a TV than obviously virtual reality.
I don't even know how many people are actually interested in 4K. I would keep hearing, I think personally, a more vocal minority than the mainstream people who go to the store and say, I want that $300 TV. Because I don't really care about 4K.
This holiday is going to, I think, be the holiday where there's just a gigantic upgrade to 4K TVs. If you've been to like a Costco or a Best Buy or any place that sells 4K TVs lately, they're so affordable. It's ridiculous. You can get one for like $500.
Right, but I would want to make sure, like, I know this is going to happen because I keep seeing it on forums when I'm looking around and stuff. People keep buying 4K TVs without HDR. And then when you go to buy one with HDR, all of a sudden it's like an extra $200 to $300 tacked on, like good HDR, not like fake HDR. Like the good TVs I see, they're like $800 for a 4K. That's like, again, you want to get something that's like 50 inches or above, because below that, there's not going to be a massive difference between 1080p. I think the amount of I think the size has to be like 47 inches or something for you to see a noticeable difference in a 1080p image. And then you get HDR in there, and then it's like 800. And I still think you're going to see people show up at Walmart, well, at least in my area, that don't have the means for a 4K TV that's $800, and they just want that 1080p $300 TV, and then they just buy the Xbox One S that's on sale for $200 that holiday. So it's interesting. It is. I mean, Evan, all right, so we'll say we'll talk about the in these words. We'll talk about the Splatoon single player, since that's what we're allowed to talk about. The frame rate there, when you were playing it, you were so happy with how smooth it was.
Yeah, I mean the game. Is smooth.
Would you rather be 30 frames and lock 1080, or would you rather have that 60 and adaptive resolution?
At the end of the day, in anything competitive that I play, all I want is a good field of view for a widescreen shot, and then as many frames as I can push out of it, mostly so that if it ever has to dip down a little bit, it doesn't have to go too low for whatever reason. And I think almost any competitive player talks about that being all they really want. Most people in a lot of the games I've seen, they'll even mess with the INI files in games to just remove like all textures and stuff just so they can maximize their frames. So that really
sounds like Counter-Strike talk right there.
Yeah, but then you even have fighting games where I think there were a few of them that were coming out that it looked like 60 frames was only on certain systems. I thought it was Street Fighter 4 was 60 frames only on one of the systems.
Well, I know like Tekken, for example, they went like straight up 900p and then 720p Xbox One and then PS4 because they desperately needed the 60 frames, and so even that game doesn't run at 1080p.
Yeah, well, there was I can never remember which one it was, but one of them ran at 30 frames, and immediately every professional who wanted to play that game in tournaments just hated it, never wanted to play it on that system. That system basically just bombed on it. So I feel like all the fighting game companies, at least, are like, yes, we have to hit the 60 number and hold it, and that's it. And I think a couple other companies are starting to catch on to that as well, but it feels like definitely the companies producing the consoles aren't so much noticing.
Here's what should have happened with TVs. They shouldn't have gone straight to 4K. They should have maybe done like 1440p and try to coin that as something, because like this PS4 Pro that came out would have been able to do 1440p with like no checkerboarding. They would have been able to make that happen. But because we needed to go to 4K because it's, the sexy thing to put on the outside of the box, it's almost like the console producers, Sony and Microsoft, were like forced in that position, because if 4K didn't get all like big and like really cool and everything, they would have ridden the original PS4 and the original Xbox One for probably up until 2020. They would have made that the 360 ran on 540p at times, and no one cared because it was fun. And I hear Sean saying that he would rather buy an Xbox One S.
Yeah. Than a Scorpio?
I'm gonna end up buying a Scorpio. I don't even have a 4K TV.
Well, I mean, what am I gonna do with a Scorpio? It's just, it's so silly. If I want, here's the thing that I don't.
I'll probably pet mine a lot. I'll probably just pet it.
We've gotten to a point with games where graphics are starting to become, improvements are starting to become negligible. It's more about art style now. It's more about, think about it. Back in the mid 2000s, everything was doing cell shaded because cell shaded looked better than realistic. And so those cell shaded games that were on the GameCube, the PS2, and the Xbox still look great today because of the art style. And it's like now you're at a point where people are wanting more artistic games. People are wanting like Cuphead. Cuphead is like, oh, everyone loves
that game.
Cuphead.
Looks really cool, by the way.
It does. Because it's something different. It's not the dark drab colors and the realistic looking, beefed up military guys.
Next gen brown.
Yeah. Like, come on, man. Just it's so crazy how these companies are just pushing these little intricacies and these little things that in the grand scheme of things don't really matter. And I don't know. It's just really weird to me.
I think what's hilarious is a lot of people came away from E3 and they said the best looking game while they were there was Mario Odyssey. Like, it was the most pleasing game to their eye because of how bright and colorful and, like you said, like the art style they chose. Some of the other games looked good. Anthem looked cool, but it didn't look different, I guess I'd say. It looked very similar to a lot of, like you said, the dark brown kind of next-gen games. It looked fun, but like you see Mario Odyssey and you're like, oh, that looks really fun. I want to play that. And it's 720p at 60 frames. And it's like, if you take a look at 720p in comparison to 4K, 720p is like a tiny little part of the top left box if you line them up. And I don't know. But Max, you were trying to chime in a couple times there with
Well, my thoughts on the Xbox One X is I think that Microsoft is really trying to entice programmers to start pushing themselves further. Because right now I'm seeing a lot of talk from video game makers that they're really bumping up against the wall. Like, there's a quote from a guy who says that the PlayStation 5 is now 5 years out. Sorry, the PlayStation 4 is 5 years out of date. And so they're basically having to pull out the oldest programming, the oldest tricks in the book to try and get games to even run decently on it. Whereas on PC, they can just do everything. Like, I play a lot of Friday the 13th online, a lot. And I own it on both PlayStation 4 and PC. And the PlayStation, the PC version, even on the lowest settings, looks completely different. Like, literally the lighting style, everything is 100% different. So I think that the Xbox One X may just be Microsoft's attempt to try and be like, hey guys, you don't have to hold yourself quite back so much.
Yeah, but what happens when the PS5 comes out 2 years after that?
Exactly.
Is the Xbox One X's life seriously like 3 years? Because then they just come out the next one?
At that point, I'm pretty sure Microsoft's going to go, okay, you win, bye. We're just going to go commit seppuku. You win.
Maybe I think Microsoft is banking on the fact that Sony won't come out with another PlayStation until 2020, even 2021. And they both talk to the same manufacturer, or they talk to the same chip maker with AMD. So they both probably know something as to how long it's going to be until we can get a chip that is significantly better for a price of $400 to $500. That's and they're trying to set a target year and date and everything, and they're probably finding out that it probably is 2020 or 2021. Now, if you go back to, there was a quote by Mark Cerny about 3 or 4 months before the PS4 Pro came out, and we had just found out about Scorpio. And it's really funny if you go back and look at it now, because Mark Cerny says you need at least 8 teraflops of power minimum for true 4K. And of course, Microsoft at the time was saying true 4K all over the place for their Scorpio. Yeah. That was a 6 teraflop machine. It needs to do checkerboarding. So it sounds like Mark Cerny is correct. You need about that much. At least we'll find out when that happens. But I have a feeling the PS5 will probably top about 10 teraflops. And the biggest thing they'll upgrade that they desperately need is the CPU. The CPU in that thing, people argue with me to the end of time on Twitter. Trust me, I know. The Xbox One X does not have a good processor. It doesn't. It wouldn't need a checkerboard if it did. And it does. They basically use kind of beefed up laptop processors, essentially. And they're not good. So that if they end up upgrading that, you're going to see some differences. You will see a jump in AI, physics. So you'll have smarter enemies, essentially. I don't know how game makers will work that in. Do you guys remember when the PS2 came out and then Metal Gear Solid 2 came out, and it was so impressive as to like how your enemies would walk around and kind of coordinate like patterns and stuff to find you. I know, Sean. I know you remember that, Sean. I thought I saw you talk about that one time. With what was that? That was PS1 for hardware pushers. Yeah. When you see that and you see your enemies talking to each other, that was actually a big eye-opening moment for me. When you see them talking and then they look around and then they kind of tap the door on the locker and then open it. Like, that was so cool to see. I don't know if they'll do that again with AI, at least to the point where it impresses me, but like, that was awesome. There are any other times you guys could think of where like something like AI, for example, really impressed you in a game?
Yeah, well, so right now I'm really into indie games randomly. I get sent so many that I'll just test them out. And I've been playing this indie game again called Origami, which I'm sure nobody has heard of, but it's basically like Tenchu. It's just basically Tenchu, but with cell-shaded art style. You're this, it's like based on...
I think I have... Is that on Steam?
Yes, it's so good. It's basically based on an old Japanese legend that you're able to, like, for revenge once in your life, you can summon the soul of a dead ancestor as a ninja to go kill your enemy, and you're basically playing as this soul, but you exist for one night. And it's really cool because the AI is looking for you, but it's very, very smart. Like a lot of times, I feel like a lot of games have really bad pathing now. Like you can just step off a ledge sometimes and then you just become invisible. Like the game has to recalculate where you're at in the environment. Whereas this
Horizon Zero Dawn had a weird issue with that when I was doing that one time with a boss.
Oh yeah. Well, especially the flying enemies. Horizon Zero Dawn was really weird of like you could just like step beneath a tree and they would just be like, well, you stopped existing, and they'll fly away when you're at 1 health. Well, Origami is smart about that, but that's what I'm most excited about in the next console generation is I want smarter enemies. I want enemies that are constantly pushing me to improve. Learning AI is something they're experimenting with on the original Xbox. They were trying to put it into Halo 2, and it just couldn't work. And so I know that companies keep trying to reapproach that idea and just keep not being able to integrate it.
Yeah, that would be pretty interesting to see smarter AI. I mean, Sean, is there any game you could think of that had like that, even from back in the day, that had like an impressive, I guess, stacked amount of enemies that knew what to do and what you were doing? I guess Metal Gear Solid is a good example.
I mean, any Metal Gear game, Black. I remember Black was pretty good.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
in that regard. I mean, it's funny. Like that's another thing that you should be focusing on: enemy AI, partner AI. But no, we got to worry about 4K. And it's like,
but is that? I was gonna say, is that AI in 4K? Because I don't care otherwise.
It's like 2 steps forward, 4 steps back. It's like
Here's the best part, Sean. I researched CES when that was happening, and they're already past 4K, so they're working on 8K monitors now, and you'll be able to buy them, I think, next year.
Awesome.
I think Dell has their first manufactured 8K monitor.
Dude, that thing needs 2 HDMI cables.
Yeah, and like you would need like 2 or 3 1080 Ti's just to play a game on it.
For each monitor they make, they have to get an ORF and an executor on the conveyor belt. It's the only way. The souls are what fuel it.
Yeah, 2 HDMI cables or 2 display ports cables, I think, running from the same source, by the way.
What the hell?
So we're gonna get to a point where either they upgrade it completely or our consoles come with 2 ports on the back because we need 8K.
Oh my gosh. Well, so what's weird is I have some friends in the film industry, and everybody in the film industry, I guess 3 years ago, thought that 2K was going to be the next jump. So a lot of movies started filming everything in 2K resolution and printing stuff on these special 2K like DVDs. And it's funny that we were like in 4K, and everyone was like, well, there goes all of our research, and now they're like 8K. Like, okay, never mind. We're just gonna smash these out back.
Well, that's because they went the other way. It's supposed to be like 2160p, but they went on the left side because it sounds bigger.
Well, there's a lot of 4K DVDs that even though the video is rendered out in 4K, the source is actually just 1440p, and the only other advantage that it gives, aside from doubling the resolution, is the color depth and the sound.
That's
so
interesting.
Even though it's labeled 4K, a lot of the actual movies aren't even 4K.
Mm-hmm.
So we're pretty much, I think we're all kind of thinking the same thing, where we'd rather have them try to innovate a little more rather than just keep trying to push, I guess, resolution. And then kind of, I mean, it's tough because they take this box and they say, oh, cool, what kind of resolution can we get out of it? And then they worry about the other stuff later. It feels like it's really weird.
Well, that's the thing too, is like I feel like the film industry is so like the more the time goes by, the film industry seems to be linking to the video game industry, or vice versa. Like a lot of professional filmmakers are actually shooting on 8K cameras and then downscaling to 4K or to 1080p, just because it looks better. So with that, like you would, obviously the video game industry wants to keep up, I guess, with resolution and stuff like that. And with lots of things coming out, in 4K and Netflix pushing 4K, of course, people are going to be like, well, why do I have to play my game in 720p or 1080p or whatever? Of course, you want to play that in 4K as well. So it makes sense, but it's unfortunate that is the direction that the mainstream seems to be going, and it only seems to be going that way because the mainstream or the media seems to be like pushing us in that direction. Whereas like companies like Nintendo, for instance, are getting away with putting out content or games on 720p, 1080p systems because of their art styles that, like Breath of the Wild is a gorgeous game. It's beautiful, but it's like such a low resolution compared to something like Anthem, right? But that's because the art style is absolutely like a watercolor painting, like a living watercolor painting, right?
Yeah, we still don't really have any realistic looking Switch games, do we?
Nah,
No,
not really.
no.
No, I mean, I guess they don't really need it with their art style and everything, but Metroid Prime might be the closest one.
Hopefully. I think we need at least a couple realistic games. I feel like we really need a hard example to show third-party developers how powerful the Switch can be. We still don't really have a definitive, realistic, like cutting-edge, air quotes, looking game that Nintendo can point to, like, you can make this for us.
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing. They at least got another third-party game because people have been begging for third-party games for the Switch now, obviously, because we're kind of in this weird period where they don't have a ton of third-party games coming up that's kind of in tandem with the others. But we get, I know Sean was excited for this. I saw him on Twitter. We get WWE 2K18 gets announced for the Switch kind of randomly, actually. It was like a Monday morning, and I remember I saw it pop up on YouTube, and it was like Seth Rollins, the cover athlete, talking about how it's on the Switch now. Very set up trailer, by the way. I don't think he actually brings his Switch to filming or anything, or TV day or whatever, but they do talk about that. So now it's getting a game that apparently, according to their blog and everything, it's going to be the exact same game, like the exact same game across the board. And 2K18 NBA appears to be the same way. So it seems like Take-Two is at least on board with the Switch, as opposed to maybe places like EA and other places that aren't. It's very interesting that it's Take-Two who kind of comes to Nintendo's aid here with these games. And I honestly think that wrestling could actually do really well on the Switch.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It will. As long as it's not a shitty port and, it looks good enough, I think it'll do fine. Like, I was going to buy this year's. I always skip a year because I have like a good year and then a bad year. And last year was a bad year for wrestling games. But so I figured this year will be better. And I was going to buy it for the PS4. But when they announced the Switch thing, I was like, okay, I'm on board with this. Because, I mean, it's easier to play games on the Switch for me. And, yeah, it is interesting that Take-Two is going to be technically the first company to release two realistic games. Like, NBA games are, I'm still on the fence about the Switch version because I need to see the Switch version because there are two games that I'm a graphics whore in, and that's my basketball games, my NBA realistic games, and realistic racing games. I need good graphics in those. So I'm on the fence whether to get the Switch version or not. I need to see some, footage of it. But the WWE game, I mean, honestly, to me, the PS3 games looked good enough, and it's not like Take-Two or back in the day THQ really did anything to sort of push graphics on those games. So it'll be fine. But I did think it was very interesting, kind of as a side note, you mentioned the Seth Rollins thing. Was that not one of the best promotions of the system itself?
Mm-hmm. No, it was because it was pretty good. Here's the thing about the people. So I did obviously like when I see this stuff, I do a ton of research on the backstories of people and everything, and I find out that they have a full. You probably already know about this, Sean. They have a full like wrestling gaming YouTube channel with Xavier Woods, and they do up, down, down.
Yeah.
And Seth Rollins is like the champion for like Madden and all these other games, and he's like he plays like Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo and like all this stuff. One of the guys that looks like he's freaking built out of just pure muscles starts with a C. You can probably have him out here, Sean.
Big Cass? No, he's
like
Cesaro.
Yeah, there you go. Him. He said in an interview he can't buy a Switch or he would lose his job as like a professional wrestler because he would just play it all the time.
He got one and he did all the shrines in Breath of the Wild.
That was an older interview. That was before the Switch came out, I think. So there you go. All right, there you go. So like a lot of the guys, I guess, do play a lot of games. I just didn't know if Rollins was actually into that kind of stuff, but I guess maybe he is. There you go. But yeah, that was a pretty good promo, I would say, promotion for it. But a lot of those guys there do have to have some kind of like acting chops, I guess, or they can't do it. But it's interesting that they are putting that on there. See, Sean, you have to catch me up a little bit here because the wrestling games that I would play a lot were on the PS2 and the GameCube. I played Day of Reckoning and I played Here Comes the Pain, I think was the other one I played a lot of. And I have not played any of the newer ones. Like, what was the last one I played? I think those were the last ones I played, actually. I didn't play any on the 360, any on the PS3, anything. So I don't know if they've gotten better or worse.
I mean, honestly, not much has changed. Here's what they do with the wrestling games. They will, for like 3 years, they will have like a certain control style, and then they'll completely change it. And that's like the whole big innovation. They're like brand new control scheme. And it's like, shit, I just learned the other one. I finally mastered it. And then, now all of a sudden I can't get it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, not much has changed. There's been adding of things, removing of things. They're very year to year, just sort of updates more on the roster, I feel, than gameplay innovation. But I did see you playing the new Fire Pro.
Evan and I played Fire Pro Wrestling, and it was pretty fun. We didn't do too much else in it, but that game's kind of tough actually to get the hang of when you're used to the other ones.
Yeah, Fire Pro is awesome though. And did you see the director of it wants to bring it to the Switch?
It would make a lot of sense if you look at Fire Pro Wrestling and like the art style and everything. It would make a lot of sense on the Switch, especially since when I looked at the control scheme, I looked down and looked at the controllers. They could do single Joy-Con play.
Oh,
so
yeah.
you could set it down on a table and two people could like play and do things like landmine matches. Yeah, they put landmines outside of the ring and you explode.
Yeah, Fire Pro is great. They actually had 2 Fire Pro games on the Game Boy Advance too, so it's not
I was sold on that game when I went on the workshop, and the number 3 downloaded person was Blanche Devereaux from Golden Girls.
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me.
Yes, that was the third most downloaded person. I think the second was like Trump and Hillary or something. I don't know, something like that. But
It's good. Got to keep it classy.
someone made a CNN wrestler too. But that makes a lot of sense. See, I'm used to murdering construction workers from Day of Reckoning, so I'll have to get used to the new rules they have now.
That was such a bizarre story.
It was, yeah. You would murder construction workers to ruin WrestleMania for the year. If you guys have never played Day of Reckoning, it's hilarious. Go back and play it on the GameCube. It's the stupidest story mode ever. The second one was a little better.
Yeah.
But so the Switch, it still needs some third-party support. Those would be the most realistic-looking games I assume we'll get. Unless there's something else, because they're not getting mad in FIFA. Actually, FIFA would be a realistic-looking realistic game, wouldn't you guys say?
Yeah.
We have Skyrim too. Skyrim's kind of, I guess, realistic.
Yeah. Basically, I'm thinking of games that we can just take the Switch version and seriously do like a side-by-side, like how you would do like Digital Foundry do, where they kind of slide it back and forth. I'm just thinking of any of those games where you would get that. I guess those are it, though. I mean, what other games are going to all Xenoverse 2? That's out soon, but that's a cartoony game.
Yeah.
Although it is going to be the full version, and it's going to be $10 cheaper at $50.
We need some sort of cross-platform racing game, like Sean was saying. I feel like that's always the best display of power, is to have something where it's like, look how shiny this is, look at all these water effects. So hopefully we get some sort of cross-platform racing game in the next couple of years, that way we can finally really see a side-by-side speed test.
Well, it's kind of funny, though, that you mentioned that, because when you think about, like, the grand scheme of things, like, remember how many companies were making, either arcade sim or straight-on sim racing games on, like, the PS2 and the PS3? And now, like, what do you have? You have Forza, you have Project Cars, Gran Turismo, kind of, like...
The Crew is like the big one right now. So hopefully the Crew ends up on the Switch. Which wouldn't shock me. I mean, when you think about it, Ubisoft is really pushing support for the Switch. Maybe we could end up with the Crew in some form on there.
They've always been really buddy with Nintendo, though.
Yeah,
So
really.
been right there with them.
It would be really good for them to put the Crew on Switch, because they would have literally no competition in terms of actual racing games.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah,
Dominated.
I've said this with third parties for a while. It's whoever shows up on the Switch, like, it's going to be really weird, because people are going to go to GameStop and everyone's going to buy wrestling on the Switch, because there's not a ton of releases that come out every week. So it's like, if you bring a third party game over to the Switch, it's going to sell well, because everyone's just looking to buy a new game for their Switch.
Well, that's what Nicholas, or however the hell you pronounce it, that's what they're doing. Like, people don't seem to put 2 and 2 together. It's like when you walk into a GameStop, you see, there's not that many games there. But, when you see The Binding of Isaac, when you see Cave Story, when you see all their upcoming releases that are going to be physical, like, it totally makes sense. And they'll totally get impulse buys. And that's probably why they keep pushing, more games. They're putting more games on the Switch, and they're all getting, like, physical releases. I love it because I prefer physical stuff. So, it totally makes sense, and it's totally a viable way to get more sales just because people are like, okay, I want something else for my Switch. I beat Zelda. I'm tired of Mario Kart. Oh, what's this game? Oh, $30, $40. Oh, okay, I'll check it out. Like, it totally makes sense.
I would if I was a developer and I could port my stuff over like relatively affordably, I would be stumbling over myself to make that happen. Like it would be a race to get there. Like a third party should really be racing to put stuff on the Switch because there's not that much third party competition at all. And in fact, Nintendo fans may feel like they need to buy it, So whoever's there first will be like, well, we're going to sell 500,000 copies of this just for being there, just for showing up. And maybe another 500,000 if they like it. So
look at Lego City Undercover, that sold better on the Switch, right? Yeah. Just because of the availability of games at the time, like it was so slim, and so people preferred, I'll just get it on the Switch, so I'll have more to play on my Switch. It's genius. You're right. What Nicalis is doing, like they're putting more physical stuff on the shelves, make it look like there's a newer game. So if somebody's mom walks in there, it's like, oh, hey, check it out. Look, she's not going to go to the eShop. She's going to see the new game on the shelf, right? So,
yeah. That Blade Strangers game, I need that to come out this year. Have you guys seen that?
What was it?
Which game?
It's called Blade Strangers. It's a fighting game that uses like indie characters. It's got people from like Cave Story and Code of Princess and stuff.
Oh, I see that. Yeah, that looks kind of cool.
Yeah, dude, it looks like it reminds me sort of like of a Dreamcast fighting game, and I want it so bad. Like I'm so hyped for that game. The more I see and the more I watch of it, I'm like, holy shit, this looks awesome. And once again, it's
made by Nicholas.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, holy shit, these dudes know what they're doing.
Speaking of,
when's that coming out?
There's a placeholder date of March 21st, 2018, but it looks pretty done to me. So I'm hoping that it comes out sooner. I know it's coming out on PS4, Steam, and Switch. No Xbox One.
Okay, because they you guys remember that Kamiko game, right? The one that came out on the Switch, the one that was kind of like Zelda.
Yeah,
I think that actually sold over 100,000 copies.
Yeah,
see, that's insane. That is so much. It's like when Xbox Live Arcade came out.
Well, yeah, exactly. Boom, Philip, perfect analogy right there. Is people forget that there were a lot of games like Fez and Castle Crashers. A lot of people talk about those. Or those were some of the first totally digital games on early digital marketplaces like that, and they sold millions of units. And I think right now is the time for indie developers to make $5 or $10 digital only Switch games, and they will just rake in the cash.
Yeah, like the new Retro City Rampage game coming out. That's gonna probably do really well on the Switch. Shakedown.
Yeah.
Was that Shakedown Miami?
Miami, yeah.
Yeah. That's gonna do really well on the Switch, just because, like you said, there's just not a lot to buy, and it's coming out. I think it's gonna be out this year, I believe. So, and then oh gosh, I don't even. Is anyone even still playing NBA Playgrounds?
Nope.
A little bit. I'm still playing it a little bit.
Because you saw it got the online patch, right?
Yes.
How's that play anyway? I didn't get a chance to play it yet.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it plays online.
How do you like the shot meter they added to the thing?
I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the shot meter just because I got very used to how you were supposed to shoot without it. So it's sort of an adjustment for me. But yeah, I mean, it's still a fun game. I would love to see, sales of that versus other platforms too, because I mean, unfortunately that game was sort of, the quick port where it has like on the, when you play it in tablet mode, it's got like the fuzzy image that sort of Snake Pass has, which kind of sucks, but it's still a fun game.
Yeah, because I think it had to drop down to a certain resolution that's below the screen, and that's probably why it looks kind of fuzzy.
Yeah, I remember them saying something when it initially came out about in the actual patch that was adding online that they were going to attempt to fix that, but I guess they weren't able to do it, which kind of sucks. But I really liked NBA Playgrounds, and I still like it, but I just don't like. I never came back for the online stuff. It's just too much time went by, and so many more games came out, and now Splatoon 2 is coming out in a couple days, and it's like I can't go back. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Stuff moves so fast nowadays.
Oh yeah,
we're on to the next thing so quick.
What's a really good game that just came out? Complete side note that shit, I forgot the name of it. What's that game that just came out? The hack and slash game.
Oh, Implosion.
Yeah, that game is super fun. I really like it.
Yeah, you didn't play it on Android or anything, did you?
No, I don't play mobile games.
Okay, yeah, no, it was on a mobile. A lot of people knew about it, but I usually need a controller to play those kind of games. I can't imagine playing that on a touchscreen. I mean, a virtual joystick on like a touchpad is not a good thing. It is not good.
I played the first level of that game on iPhone when it first came out, and then was like, oh, this is cool, but I'm never going to play it again because I hate touchscreen games.
Yeah.
But then now I'm like about to finish the Switch version because of the buttons. It's an awesome game. It is. It's just now I actually have it on a console I care about. So, I mean, I love my phone. I just don't want to play games on it unless I'm catching Pokemon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's you're going to see more mobile games come over, by the way, just the way that the Switch is set up. You'll see games built for ARM that just easily get ported to the Switch, much like that game did. They'll run better. They will, and you have controls, so why not? Really, I don't see any problems. Some people are like, don't bring any mobile games. Well, it's either there or it's not. It's up to you to buy it, so why not? As long as they're not bringing like every single, Kingdom Builder clone over, I don't care.
Yeah, or not that the Final Fantasy 15 castle building game that is such hot garbage.
Oh gosh, what were they like? That was such an obvious like, let's see if this will work kind of thing.
Oh god, they sent me an email recently trying to offer me money to talk about it. I'm like, no.
Yeah, they sent me that same email. Yep, same email. They're like, would you like to talk about this so we can give you money? I'm like, no.
You're desperate.
Have you seen them on FameBit for it? They're offering like up to I think 10K.
It's ridiculous.
It is.
Wow. So catch my new video for Final Fantasy on Monday, guys.
Oh yeah. On a totally unrelated note. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know which company made. That's not Square that's making that game, right? It's some other company, and they're just Square's like licensing the characters to them and everything.
I thought it was being done third party by Square. Square was having a company make it for them per their demands.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it is a company. They're having them like make it. So.
Yeah. Some guy was like, it'd be really great if we just microtransactioned our fans into suicide.
Yep. That I mean, they're trained for it on the phone. It's more just that I guess that group. They're just what they're used to. Like they don't think twice about paying $2 for extra coins or $2 to make something go faster on their phone.
Yeah.
They're just trying to take advantage of something that does not cost much to make, but makes a ton of money.
Yeah.
It's done by Epic Action LLC, and I don't see anything else that they've ever done.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Sounds like a fake company name. Epic Action LLC.
When they put LLC on the end, that's how you know.
I'm 90% sure I've heard their name before, but they're just the type of people who literally port cell phone games. That's all they do. Is a lot of times they don't even develop it. So I think this may be their first ever personal developed thing, and it sucks.
They have 9 employees.
Wow. Well.
I'm kind of creeping on them to see what I can find out.
If you find their contact info, we'll send them an email. Be like, what are you doing?
Oh man, Philip? You get some weird offers, don't you? You said you got something for like teeth whitening or something.
Yeah, I got some really, really weird ones. Teeth whitening was one of them. Yesterday, I got one for a snorkel mask.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm wondering where these people are getting my email from.
This guy has been hounding me for weeks, but this guy is trying to pay me to talk about his all wood watches. It's some company where they literally make the gears are wood, everything's completely wood, and I'm like, have you watched any of my videos? Do you really think I'd be like, hey guys, thanks for watching Top 10 Thursday. Now look at this giant clunky watch that weighs 4.5 pounds. Like, no, there's no way I'm going to talk about your stupid watch.
Maybe if you did something exciting like light it on fire, people might enjoy it.
Yeah, let's see how flammable this is. I'm going to wait for the check to clear before they do that video.
I have not been contacted. People are saying in the chat at Dollar Shave Club. I've never been contacted by Dollar Shave Club, which is weird because they seem to contact everyone.
Yeah, I don't get Dollar Shave Club. The only loot box or anything, I got a thing called Grub Box or something. It's like a snack crate thing, and that person emails me like, "Hello, friend. I just wanted to check for a 30-second time to see if you changed your mind." I'm like, no.
Yeah, I could do that. I could do that. Someone said in the comments, I could do that. Watch thing. I could do that. I just smash it with a hammer. I'm more happy to do that. Although I don't know if does he need it sent back. That might be a problem.
Yeah. We only have this one watch. That's why we need people to buy them.
That would not be good. Yeah, there's a lot of offers that come through. People are curious. Chat. Yeah, YouTubers get, if depending on where you are, I guess in terms of subscriber count or whatnot, you get so many weird offers. So many.
Yeah.
It's
I got
insane.
snacks once. They wanted to send me snacks. I'm like, what am I going to do with snacks? Well, you can eat them while you're playing games. I was like, no.
Yeah, they try so hard to cross their marketing. What is the weird one I get all the time lately? I keep getting just lots of weird ones. Like they start their emails. This one, hello, my dearest beloved friend. I would like you to talk about our newest product, a series of belts. Belts. A series of belts. Like, it doesn't say if they're for my waist or for my car. It just says a series of belts. Like, I'm not going to reply to that email.
Like, now I'll be honest. Like, if it's something in line with my channel and I like it, like, I have no problem doing it. But if I'm like, this makes no sense, then hell no, I'm not going to do it. Like, it's silly to me.
I've never had someone ask I've never seen Blue Apron send me anything. They seem to send that to a lot of people too. I think it's Blue Apron and Terrace Kitchen. I think they're known for actually sending stuff like out to get people to do stuff. That, and I get so many cases, like Switch cases.
Oh yeah, I get that stuff too. Yeah,
so many,
and it's all the same case. It's like they're all making that same case.
Yeah,
that they want.
I don't understand. Like they all, it's always looks exactly the same. And there's so many cases that I'm just like, nah, don't worry about it. Don't send me that. And sometimes they send it to me, and I don't know what to do. Like I'm just like, I'm not going to do anything with this. And they're like, oh no, send it back.
Well, I mean, they have billions of them. They probably feel the same way.
I like this. I got the Switch sort of little mini arcade looking thing.
That's cool.
That's cool. He emailed me and I was like, yes, gimme. And then once I got it, I was like, okay, this is awesome. I still need to customize it, but like shit like that, like whatever, that's cool, you know, as long as it's in line with the channel. I don't want snacks and teeth whitening and every other godforsaken thing.
How long did that thing take you to put together, by the way?
5 minutes, and I'll be honest with you, I'm terrible at putting things together, but it was super easy.
Nice.
What's it made out of? Is it just like wood or cardboard, or what is it?
It's wood. It's a light wood, maybe like a balsa, but it's pretty legit. And like a couple of my friends bought one based off the video, and they all love it, and they all got these crazy customization ideas. But I mean, it's very simple, but it holds the device well, and it looks cool. And I mean, it's just, you know, obviously a novelty, but it's still cool. I love it.
Is that the base top one?
What was that?
Is that the base top one?
Base top is in the company who made it, or?
Yeah, base top. No,
this was shit. What was the name of that company? They also sent me some Joy-Con things to put on the top of the Joy-Con, which were nice. I want to say it was a weird company name. Let me see if I can find it. I know.
How much are they?
I want to say this was like $17 for the thing.
That's it.
And then, yeah, it was super cheap. Let's see. Oh, actually, it's on sale for $14 right now. It was by Mary Ann. $14, free Prime shipping. It comes in black and red. I sound like a freaking salesperson for them. But yeah, like,
it comes in a variety of colors and on
Tell us
sale
more.
now.
Yeah, like I was very happy with the products. I figured it would just be, you know, some sort of crappy knockoff thing, but yeah, like the Joy-Con little extender grip things and the thing worked well. You get them both for like $22. So if you're in the market for them, I recommend it. It was good stuff. I liked it.
It's a neat idea. I will say that, to like turn your Switch into like a little arcade cabinet.
Yeah,
That's a cool idea.
I've seen so many people like making their own, and I'm like, I wish I wasn't an idiot so I could make my own. And then when they sent me the email, I was like, wow, you guys are making these? This is freaking awesome. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's it.
The only thing Switch related I've reviewed recently is I found an adapter that lets me use PlayStation 4 controllers on my Switch. So I did one of those recently, and it works pretty well. It's really weird to do, but I mean, it just feels weird to be holding a PlayStation 4 controller and playing Mario Kart and be like, wow, I'm kicking everybody's ass online, and I'm using the totally wrong controller for this.
Oh, wow. So on the Amazon page for it, someone's actually done like a customized thing with it already, and it looks really cool. They put a bunch of like Nintendo related stuff on it.
Oh yeah, see, I would probably end up painting it. That's kind of cool though.
Yeah.
To paint it. Neat. Let me see. So now we all know that Metroid is coming out, right? Samus Returns is coming up. Are you going to review that, by the way, Max? Do you know?
Oh hell yes. Yep. Definitely
okay.
full review up on the Dreamcast Guide channel for sure. It'll probably be my last ever 3DS review, but it'll be nice to end it with a game that looks so freaking fun.
You're not going to do the Pokemon?
No,
Ultrasonic Moon?
people have been asking me about that a lot, but I don't know. I feel like I don't know enough about Pokemon. That's one of those few series that I'm afraid to review because I feel like I'm gonna pronounce like Majokimon's like name wrong, and I'm gonna get 7,000 comments like "kill yourself, idiot." Like, okay, never mind. So I don't mess with Pokemon. The fan base is too passionate.
So I keep getting hit with tweets and messages and all this stuff about people are basically trying to put the word out there that people are saying in the chat, hashtag Operation Samus Returns, because the thing about Metroid is it sells well outside of Japan.
Mm-hmm.
It does not sell well in Japan. It doesn't. I think Metroid Prime 1 sold like 70,000 units, and that's it in all of Japan. And then it got worse with the second one, did like sub 30,000 or something. And so now everyone's basically trying to push this because Nintendo is giving Metroid fans 2 Metroid games. They're giving them Prime 4, and they're giving them Samus Returns. And now it's up to people to actually support this with their wallets. And now I'm trying to figure out if people actually will, because a lot of times you see fans like really, really beg for something, and then they have it given to them, and then they kind of like are satisfied just by having it announced, and then they don't go out and buy it.
Yeah.
And it
Didn't that
happens a
happen to
lot.
The Last Guardian?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Where everybody was begging for it. Every single E3, it was like the #1 anticipated game that we knew about. And then it releases, and I think it did okay.
Yeah.
So, like,
It had
Yeah.
decent week 1 sales and basically no week 2 sales.
But it's like are people? Here's the thing that people I think are worried about right now, is Samus Returns will kind of fly under the radar. People won't really buy it because they're excited for Prime, and then I think they're concerned that Nintendo's going to look at that and say, "Well, we tried with Metroid, and there's just a lot of people didn't buy it, so we'll do Prime. We'll see how that goes, and if that does not sell 5 million copies, 4 million copies in its lifetime, we're just not going to bother with it anymore." So I think that's what fans are worried about. And it's weird because we haven't seen Metroid for a while. It's completely skipped the Wii U.
Yeah.
And it was on the Wii, but we had Other M, and that is Other M. Metroid Prime 3 was pretty good, I think. And it's to the point now where fans, it's up to fans. And do you guys think Metroid Samus Returns is actually going to sell well? Do you think it's going to kind of fall off a little bit? Because Japan's not going to buy it, and they have a ton of 3DSs there.
Yeah, I think it is going to sell really, really well. I think it's just got that hype and that word-of-mouth buzz that's really, really high. And also, it's a really good-looking game. I feel like what kind of helps this and helps Nintendo in this is I think they produced it for really, really cheap. What's it, Mercury? What's the name of the...
Mercury Steam.
Mercury Steam produces stuff very, very, very inexpensively. So I feel like even if this only sells 300,000 copies, they've easily made their money back. And so they may just start doing like more 2D Metroids for dirt cheap.
So I guess the real question is, can Prime possibly cross 5 million units sold in its lifetime?
I don't know. That seems really giant. I mean, it all depends on how big the install base is for the Switch at release. Because the Switch has for those who don't know, the Switch and the Wii U had remarkably high attach rates. Almost every single person bought an average of like 8 games. It was something crazy high.
Yeah, I think Mario Kart sold like 8 million units, and there were only 13 million Wii U's there at the time.
Yeah. So, man, so if we have an attach rate even similar to that when it comes to the Metroid Prime, it's in smooth waters. But I don't know. It could be a little bit dicey. Maybe not 5 million, but 3 or 4, maybe. Yeah.
Well, let's say that the Metroid Prime comes out. This one comes out next Christmas. Let's just say that it makes it to a 2018 release. We see it next Christmas, and at the time, based on what their projections are, they would look to have close to 20 million Switches in people's hands at that time. Do you think then, going for the next year or two, do you think Metroid could get to 5 million if there are that many Switches around? Let's say by the time Metroid fizzles out, there are 35 million Switches out there.
Jesus.
I mean, we're talking like 3 or 4 years from now. Like, well, Metroid's going to sell for a while, like Zelda will.
Yeah, I don't know. So for some reason, that amount of Switches just seems staggeringly massive to me. It just seems so like the Switch is selling well and the Switch is being well supported, but I don't know. I feel like there is going to be a plateau at some point. 35 million seems like a huge number for 3 years, but if they do hit that number, oh yeah, that is going to be basically a packet, and it's going to be the game that everybody's like, hello, I would like Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart, Super Smash 16, because I'm going to fantasize that exists now, and I'd like Metroid.
Maybe you think that's the big announcement that everyone's like freaking out about right now because of Super Metal Dave put a little teaser out there. You think it is Smash?
Yeah, it was funny because everybody in chat,
too.
People have been discussing the Super Metal Dave video, so yeah, I'm thinking that it's going to be Smash.
Jesse and Sean, did you guys see that video?
I did.
I haven't watched it just yet, but going off what you were saying about whether or not Metroid will sell a lot, I think the key to it, because I think all the hardcore fans are going to buy it regardless, but I think the key to getting it to sell well is if it has an amazing multiplayer, because that would get everybody on Twitch, YouTube to start live streaming it, getting it out there. More people would watch it, want to hop in and play with whoever they were watching play the game.
Sure.
For the game to keep selling after the first few weeks, I think multiplayer is key, because the main story mode's only going to last for a few hours. Then everyone's going to either put it on their shelf, not touch it, or sell it back to GameStop.
Yeah, but if they have a really good multiplayer, you're absolutely right. Something that's competitive. It's going to be a first-person shooter. It's Prime, but something that's competitive and fun and has actual like length to it. Yeah, it can be a good time. Like something like Splatoon lasts so long because of the multiplayer, so why not? They could definitely do some cool stuff with that. But yeah, you guys, I would check out his video. It's I think it's titled Nintendo's Trump Card. Yeah. But basically, he's saying Super Metal Dave was on the SpawnCast at one point. It got picked up by like the No and everybody else because he said that we would see 2 Metroid games at E3, and he ended up being right. He had some source or something that said that. Anyway. He's now saying that he has basically sources that are saying we will see some Nintendo Trump card. There's some big announcement coming soon from Nintendo that like their announcements are not done for this year, basically, even after Metroid Prime and Mario Odyssey and all this stuff. Something else is coming. And I've started to kind of work into it being Smash is what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Soon. I think it's too soon for Smash.
Yeah. Well, we usually get a Nintendo Direct like before holiday season, I think, right? Am I thinking right?
Yeah, the fall one, the fall direct.
There's also Comic-Con coming up, and Nintendo usually has some sort of presentation at the Game Awards at the end of the year.
Yeah. And then apparently they're going to have a lot of their games there, too.
Don't you think that's too much too soon? Like Splatoon, Zelda, Mario, Metroid announced, and then Smash. Like, you're pretty much blowing your load in 2 years. Like,
yeah. But I think, personally, I think that's what Nintendo needs to do. Yeah. Like, I'm a big fan. Yeah, right now Nintendo is trying to keep that Steam going as hard as they can. So I think they're literally just taking... I mean, that's the reason they were like, okay, we have to announce that there is going to be a Switch Pokemon game, but we have no concept art. Just film a guy drawing. And so it's like, hello.
I said that they probably figured that out like 2 days before when everyone was getting mad. Like literally after the Direct, they were like, let's just go in his office and film it and cut it. Let's do that now.
Yeah. We'll do it live. It'll be fine.
It looked so like out of nowhere, like off the cuff kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well,
But
they
yeah,
did the
you're
same
right.
thing with Metroid too. I mean, Metroid Prime 4 isn't coming out. We don't know when it's coming out, but you know, they announced it so far ahead of time just to calm everyone down. You know, just to
It
give
looks
us
like
all
something
some.
they made in After Effects.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a 30-second trailer. It's got like 70 million views, and it's a logo. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's that's the way it is though. You know, people want Metroid, they get Metroid, they freak out. So it's perfectly fine, I think. But
I think though that I know that Metroid hasn't always been like the most popular Nintendo franchise of all their franchises. I know that Mario obviously is the most popular, and Zelda is, you know, a close second. But I think that it still has that nostalgia factor that those series have. I think that all of us here, you know, in talking to each other right now, like we all grew up playing Metroid. I know that pretty much all of you played Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo. You know, and I think a lot of people who have a Switch are in that demographic as well. Like, are people like within, you know, between 16 and like, I don't know, 35 or something like that. You know, they grew up playing those games and they would love to play a new Metroid. And I think that Metroid definitely has a chance of getting to 5 million, especially if the Switch has an install basis of even like, you know, 25 million or something like that, or 20 million, just because of the nostalgia factor, because it's a first party, because there's so much hype to it. And it's not The Last Guardian. Like, this is Nintendo. Like, they're on a whole different level. You know what I mean? Like, they're legends.
well, if the Switch has Pokemon, it will build that user base rapidly.
Oh yeah,
Pokemon, yeah.
especially in Japan. Like the sales of the Switch in Japan are already super high. Everybody is ramping up for Splatoon, super hardcore. So I think if you stack Pokemon on top of that, it's going to keep being a really strong market for them.
Oh, easily, yeah. I mean, it's capped already. They'd sell out of everything they get. It seems to be right around anywhere from 22 to 24 or even 25,000 units a week in Japan, and that's just what they have. They can't sell more than what you have, so
and
that's
I think,
the way it is.
I think Samus Returns is going to do pretty well. I mean, I think it'll do okay in Japan as well. Just because
it's not a first-person one though, so yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's not a first-person shooter, and I know the Japanese audiences, they don't like first-person shooters. They don't prefer them. Most of them don't. And that's why most of those games don't do very well over there. So I know that this being a third-person, you know, side-scroller or whatever, is going to probably have a better chance of doing better, you know, than the Prime games did, right? So
yeah, oh, absolutely, you're definitely right about that.
It'll sell fine. I mean, there's such a big install base of the 3DS. It's not the game we didn't want in Federation Forces. It's an actual interesting game. I mean, look at the trailer for it has, you know, a lot of views on it and whatnot. Of course, views doesn't translate to sales, but you know, it is sort of an indication of interest at the very least. So I think it'll sell fine. You know, it's not going to be a Star Fox Zero situation where everyone wanted Star Fox. You got a game that people either loved or hated, but it was on a dead system, so it didn't really matter at the end of the day anyways.
You know, in a really weird way, and this just came to my brain, this sort of reminds me of Batman Arkham Asylum, how we had this really bad series or really like mixed series of Batman games, and the brand was kind of like fading in obscurity. And then all of a sudden, this smaller studio, Rocksteady, picks it up. Not a lot of people are really sure it's going to be great, and it comes out and it just sells like gangbusters. When you think about it, that's only like a 12-hour single-player experience, 20 hours if you're doing all the collectibles and all the side missions, but it just kept selling and ended up being a big established franchise. I, for some reason, picture Metroid Prime 4 could totally hit that exact same vein of just being that rather short but super, super tight single-player experience that people have been craving. So I think that it could hit 5 million if it's that same type of thing of just pick it up, pay $60, play the shit out of it for a weekend, put it down, love it.
Well, they even pulled it in-house, right? Like, they know it needs to do well.
It's got to have online multiplayer.
I would hope, but I don't know. Nintendo's so weird about multiplayer, so I hope so. Yes. Do I expect it? Absolutely not, personally.
Really?
Yeah.
I think this is going to be. I think this is finally going to be how, you know, Nintendo's Halo 2, if that makes any sense. I really think that they're going to go balls to the walls with this, because they've been going balls to the walls with all of their main franchise. I mean, look at Zelda. Look at how big of a departure that was, but how freaking crazy it was. Look at Odyssey. It's like, you know, you're finally starting to see evolution of these games. You know, if you look at the Legend of Zelda series, which, you know, fantastic series, but it's been the damn same since, you know, Ocarina of Time. Like, it was always the same, and it looked different, and it played a little different, and they threw in different mechanics, but it was always the same. And then they're just like, oh, hey, here's Breath of the Wild, completely different. And Odyssey sort of has that feeling to it too. So I think they'll go balls to the walls with it, and it'll be a crazy game.
I can't picture a game being made by Nintendo where I actually walk around and shoot other players. Like, I know Splatoon has shooting, but I mean, like, straight up, like, shoot Samus and she falls over dead. I just don't see that. If they do it, I do think it'll really, really help because it will surprise people. But for some, call me unimaginative, but I just still don't quite see that happening.
Metroid Prime Hunters on the DS.
Yeah,
that was weird. Yeah, I owned that too. It was good, but man, the servers got shut off fast.
There was an interesting quote from Nintendo recently where they said that they weren't finished creating super realistic games, and I think Metroid Prime 4 could be what they were referring to, because we're not seeing it in Zelda, Mario, Splatoon, or really anything else. And the only thing that I don't really think would match the cell shading as much, or at least do as well, would be something like Metroid, because on the GameCube, I remember whenever the first Prime, where Prime 2 released, they were comparing it and Halo side by side, debating on G4 TV, which was at the time the most realistic looking video game to exist.
Well, they're very fortunate to have that art style, because if you look at even now, Metroid Prime on the GameCube, it is a really good looking game. People are even using Dolphin to like make it even look better. And then they look at it and you pull back and you're like, that looks like it could be a 360 or PS3 game on the GameCube. And now they're taking it and they're moving up to a much more powerful system than the GameCube in the Switch. So you could see a much bigger jump even there. And maybe it is a realistic looking game. I mean, they could do that. They could do something like what Sean's saying, where they have their big aha moment with the online, and all of a sudden it's a great online with matchmaking, ranking system, parties, you know, friends list, everything can be built into that game like a Halo did. And it could be awesome. So it's going to be interesting. I think that's one of the big reasons to make people are excited, because they want to see a Metroid game be really good and take advantage of the Switch's hardware.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you haven't seen a Metroid game since the Wii, which was essentially an overclocked GameCube. So, like, there's been so much time passed, and obviously the Switch is much more powerful than the Wii. So it's pretty exciting.
This is very much a new age of Nintendo. I know a lot of people are talking about how, like, clearly the young blood is finally taking over. People are finally able to get in there and be like, hey, what if we did a totally weird open world Mario where he can actually become a dinosaur? And it's like, well, nobody can tell us no. Let's do it.
What were you trying to say, Philip?
I don't even remember. I totally forgot.
Spoiler for Mario Odyssey, the T-Rex is going to be Yoshi.
Oh.
That could be. Mario Odyssey just looks awesome. Oh, go Phil.
I was gonna say I don't think that this Metroid Prime 4, I don't think it's gonna be realistic looking. I think that they're gonna go with a different style of graphics than they've gone before with the Prime series, but I think it's gonna take advantage of the Switch in a different way. Meaning, like, you know, hardware wise, like, I think they're gonna focus on locking 60 frames per second. They're gonna focus on trying to keep the resolution up as high as possible, and the way they're gonna do that is by avoiding realistic graphics but still giving a really great art style that matches that whole sci-fi space feel to it, just like they did with Breath of the Wild, that matches the whole fantasy feel to it. So I don't know.
No, I mean, they could do something. I mean, if you look at like we've talked about, Breath of the Wild was a huge departure. Yeah, they could take it, and because it's in-house now, where maybe it has more of a Japanese influence, maybe they do maybe more like you said, maybe a cell shade look or something. I mean, there's a lot of, they're very creative in there, as we've seen. So who knows what they're coming up with right now? I mean, they're 3/4 of the way to being on drugs while they're in the developers room figuring this stuff out. So who knows what they come up with? But if there's any company that I have enough faith in to be creative and make the hardware work, I think it's Nintendo. So, I mean, it doesn't seem to matter what hardware you give them; they'll figure out a way to make the game look good and be fun most times. So,
just not a Virtual Boy.
Well, yeah, not the Virtual Boy. I think that was before they kind of figured out, maybe we shouldn't do stuff like VR. Speaking of VR, we're starting to run into slowed sales for VR. I will say that. It's starting to be reported that sales are down overall. People don't seem as interested in it. And now, if you watch the D23 event, we now have an augmented reality thing that apparently Lenovo is helping them make, which was weird. But you still have to put your phone in the headset. Did you guys see that at all?
No.
Very weird. It's like you're wearing sunglasses, and then you still put the phone in there, and it starts overlaying stuff like augmented reality, like Pokemon Go or anything like that. It's supposed to be more accurate, though, I think, based on what they were showing. But they showed things like, how there was the chess in Star Wars where they were on the Millennium Falcon and they were playing chess. They showed that, and then they also teased very quickly at the end where it looked like you would buy like a lightsaber hilt, and then it would overlay a lightsaber onto that. Mm-hmm. But it looked more like we were talking about it while it was going on. It looked more like a gimmick almost. And I feel like they need to get VR figured out. Now, there's also this rumor that Facebook is coming out with a standalone VR headset where you don't need a computer, you don't need a phone, you put the headset on and you go. And apparently they're going to use like Snapdragon processors from cell phones, and they're essentially going to build in a cell phone board into this headset, so you get it, and it's not really going to play a lot of games, but you can do things like sit down and watch Netflix with it, probably play lower, I guess, less intensive games on it. But I mean, we're at this point now where VR is so hard to sell to somebody unless they try it, and most people don't want to try it. Yeah. So like, how do we? I mean, if VR is the next innovation, which what people are saying still online, that next console generation VR is going to be it. And when you have to sell them a $600 headset and then a $400 system, for $1,000.
Did audio cut out there for a second?
Anyway, any of you guys can take it.
I was going to say, sorry. I was going to, there was an interview with Shuhei Yoshida, and he was asked about a third iteration of a handheld console. And he said that PlayStation was going more in the direction of having PSVR instead of a handheld console as their second main console. And the fact that they're kind of giving up on the PSP and PS Vita family and going in a new direction that they weren't 100% sure would do good or bad kind of makes it seem like that is where they're going to be going. But then Microsoft has their augmented reality thing. Like a few years ago, they showed off the Minecraft world with the headset. And it seems kind of odd that one team is going in one direction and the other team's going in the other direction when it comes with VR, because that means all of the third parties, one game built for the PlayStation VR may not necessarily work with what Microsoft is trying to build because it uses different technology. So it wouldn't be as simple as making a third-party game and then putting it on PlayStation and Xbox. You have to essentially build it from the ground up to work with their technology. And I think that makes it harder for third parties to want to do it, because instead of going in and being comfortable knowing that no matter what you do, it's going to be able to run on all of the different VR headsets out there. Now they have to decide, do we want to go with PlayStation? Do we want to go with Microsoft? Do we want to add in functionality for the VR headsets that work only with computers? It kind of segments them, and then in the end, you don't really know which company is going to win. So it's kind of odd.
Let me hit you with this one. Okay, so Oculus went on sale. Did you guys see this? Oculus went on sale for like $200 off.
Yeah.
And there was a game that heavily benefited from that sale. Can you guys?
I do know what game you're referring to. Yeah.
Is it Lucky's Tale or
Dude, you have like the cleanest mind.
No,
dude,
wasn't it called like awesome. wife slut simulator or something? It was really
VR girlfriend.
That's what it,
massive spike in sales. Which
I would have
is
said
ridiculous.
Resident Evil.
Because there's a convention that they showed a video of this at, and it's a guy just going nuts on this on like a balloon. you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Just going nuts on like a on like a blow up doll in front of everybody. But to him, it's what it is. It's he's seeing a virtualized world in front of him. And if you go and watch the game, or just look up a game, it's on YouTube. You're essentially you have a VR girlfriend. So I do like, Philip, that you brought up Lucky's Tale, because that's the first thing. The first thing I thought of was some sort of girlfriend game when they's like, it's on sale and this game's up. It's like I could tell you right now which one it is.
I picked like the most kiddiest game possible, like the most opposite game. It was packed in with the Oculus Rift. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's. I think I hate to say it, but I really do think that is like what's going to push VR along, much like how porn pushed along Blu-ray.
And VHS versus Betamax. Betamax was like, no adult films, and it was dead in 6 months.
The reason media exists is because of porn, actually. I don't know if you guys know that. It pushed a lot of technology.
That's just the way it is. So people are just going to be like, okay, I can do this in my house when no one's around looking at me. Let's do this. Although that guy was pretty brave for doing it in the conference hall. I'll give him that.
Well, Blu-ray and HD DVD was kind of decided by porn, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep, they went with Blu-ray.
So, yeah.
Y'all remember when they're talking about they're making a PSVR mini game for Dead or Alive, and the kid's just like the dude, just basically it's like one of the characters standing there and he just puts his face between her boobs and goes like this, and it's like
that's the first thing he thinks to do. Yeah,
it's like okay, like let's just chill a little bit on this. What's going on?
There's that one. What's that game coming to the Switch where he was using the Joy-Cons to test with? Did you see that with pudding and everything?
Yeah.
That's a very. It's actually a very popular game. Oh, what is it called? It's like Sangor. What is that? Someone in the chat will probably be able to tell me, because it was hilarious.
I saw the trailer out of context all the time.
Senran Kagura. Yeah. Sean, have you seen that at all?
Yes, I did see that.
Yep. Sean's over there like, I have that machine right over there. He's not in the conversation at all. He's just hanging out like,
People are weird. People are weird. It's like,
dude, it seriously, if you go looking like on there's so many threads of people posting GIFs or GIFs, whatever you want to say, of people demonstrating this at conventions, like in front of everybody with the VR headset on. And you're right, Max, you're right. The first thing they do is sexually assault the woman in front of them. Like it's like the inner like thoughts and demons come out when you put on that VR headset.
It's really weird. So I've made it a point to try and test all the VR headsets, just because even though I'm not super into VR, I want to know about this stuff so I can write about it and talk about it. And I remember the first time I ever went to an Oculus Rift thing, I managed to get a press pass, and I went to this event, and they sat me down in this chair that literally looked like a giant spaceship thing, and they put the headset on me, like the attendant guy comes up and puts these giant headphones and this giant headset on. And the only way to describe is it feels like I have 5 minutes of memories in my head where I'm actually in a spaceship and driving around in this like asteroid belt and shooting space rocks and stuff. Because once you put on those headsets, your brain just can't tell that it's not real. Every single thing in your sight is this reality. So if it's boobs, you're going to touch them.
It's interesting how that works, right? That's like it actually tricks your mind. That's the thing. A lot of people don't like VR, but they've never used it before. VR is cool. I just don't know how they can push it into mainstream homes until you can take out a loan and get a holodeck upstairs. I just don't know how we're ever going to get to that point, because you're telling them to strap this massive box to their face and then sit down and don't put this leash on if you're using HTC Vive, for example. I don't know. I mean, Evan, are you ever going to get into VR at all?
Probably not.
No, you really don't think so?
Maybe just once in a while, because as a gimmick, it's enjoyable. And I think I've talked about this plenty of times. There's very few games that I'd really feel greatly gain from it, other than like the shock horror games, or even like the mini, I guess, almost like it's almost like the 3D future of board game type games, like Don't Stop Talking or Everyone Blows Up or whatever.
That was fun.
Keep talking and no one explodes.
Yeah, but those games are kind of like, I feel like those were best on the actual virtual stuff, but past that point, like I don't really care about the first-person shooters. I watched tech videos of a guy who was trying to design one using motion controls, where you actually have to physically like reload the gun using hand positions. He's like, it's so cool. No, it looks horrible. I don't want to do any of that. It's just miserable. So I don't know, the immersion gamings though I've enjoyed heavily. Like, you remember we were looking into those Gundam Fighter arcade units, the ones with the arced screens in front that they had in Japan.
That looked awesome. Yeah,
those are so fun. Like, that type of stuff I'd be cool with.
They take those on tour through Texas, and there's a bunch of people who just basically drive, like at every convention they put those up, and I always get them. They call them pods, and you just get in there and it's like driving a mech, but it's like $10 for 10 minutes. So you better have a fucking great time.
Yeah, but like the full immersion stuff like that always feels a little more better than just great. Just than just the virtual stuff. Virtual stuff always feels like it's that one moment you're like, okay, I get it, and then you pull the helmet off, you just go back to playing like usual. So,
all right, Sean,
I don't know.
Sean, let me ask you what your thoughts are on VR.
I hate it. It's fucking
You really hate it?
For entertainment, okay, movies, TV, porn, like that's cool. But gaming, like I don't care. Like, I don't want to have a thing strapped. Like, as a gimmick, okay, that's cool. In short bursts, okay, that's cool. I'm not gonna sit there and play a game for 6-7 hours with this little headset on me. Like I don't know. I'm just not interested in it.
No,
I like the idea of eventually getting to the point, like, as longtime viewers of this podcast know, I'm obsessed with Dot Hack Sign. And in Dot Hack Sign, it was a MMO RPG that required you wear a VR headset, basically, but it used normal controllers. And so I like the idea of someday getting to the point where there is a giant, like, 100-hour online experience where you put it on and you make a character and you go around and then find boobs and swords and go on quests. I like that, but I'm not sure that there's going to be enough people buying these headsets to ever invest in that technology and get that far.
Unless it became $100 and you didn't need anything but the headset.
Yeah, if it went super cheap, that'd be completely fine, because then you just set it down on the side and not really care if you don't want to use it at that moment. It is a distractive thing. It never feels like it really adds to games. I never feel like a developer sits down and thinks, how can we put it on VR and not just make the same game everyone's already played?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's $600 usually for a headset, and then you need generally $800 to $1,000 for a compatible PC.
Yeah.
At least you can buy a PS4 Pro, but then your library is limited compared to what's on the PC, obviously, because people are throwing anything and everything, and then the games on Steam end up being $50 for what is a lot of times a tech demo. Like, so it's extremely expensive now, but maybe in, like, and I'm not even kidding, 15 years it won't be expensive and it'll be well done, like to the point where you have glasses like these that you put on and you're there, and that's it. But that might be 20, 25 years from now. Like, we might be like old trying to play this thing. So,
and that's when we'll fully enjoy it. Like, just put it on me, Sonny.
Let's we got about 10 minutes left. Why don't we see what's going on in the chat? We can take some questions from there. If you guys see any good ones, you can go ahead and shout them out.
I remember somebody earlier in the chat kept on asking what your thought of who was it?
Hugh Jackman voicing.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman
he's been
voicing Scar.
It's fine. I mean, he has a history in movies of doing musical stuff, and it seems to work. So,
people are talking about that Mario Kart VR thing. That looks kind of interesting.
That looks terrifying. Did you see some of the trailer for it where they were driving along, that piranha plant comes down and almost eats you?
Yeah.
That looks like one of the scariest things. Although I would like to be at a Dave & Buster's, because that would actually be fun to try.
We'll see. My friends chill at this Dave & Buster's next to my house a lot, which has the Mario Kart arcade machines, and we play that a lot. So if they just randomly swapped them out for those, I'd be on board.
Although I don't know how great it would be to play like a public VR game, like with just anybody's face on that. Like, that's really gross. I have a VR headset and I use it all. Like, I don't use it nearly as much anymore, but I used to use it all the time. And every time I'd get done, it would be sweaty. It would be like a little moist. So
you have to get like face guards or something, right? Something
which apparently they use at all the VR public events. They have like a special, like, basically toilet seat they just replace each time.
Safety first. Yeah.
Oh man, that's great. Metroid would be a cool. Metroid's a game I'd like to try on VR. Actually, that would be interesting.
What Wii games would you like to see an HD remaster of on the Switch? I think I mentioned this on a recent Nintendo podcast I was on, but man, I really think they need to bring Skyward Sword over at some point. I would love that. Or Cave,
Okay.
what is it? What is that called? Brave Story? I always forget. What is it?
On the Wii, oh, like those games that kind of like made it out, but not till super
Yeah, like
late.
here's one. I always forget the name of it.
Wasn't there Last Story? Yeah, Last Story. And there was
Yeah.
another one too. What was it? What was that game called? There was another one. There's two. Something Tower.
Pandora's Tower.
Yeah, Pandora's Tower. That's what it is. Yeah, those were those ones are interesting. They could bring them over, but I just don't know how many people would buy them. A lot of people wouldn't
Yeah.
know what they are, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm talking pie in the sky stuff here. I'm sure this stuff would sell 12,000 copies on a good day.
Yeah, I
That'd
would
be
like
hard
to
to
see, because obviously I'm a huge Zelda fan, but I would love to see an HD version of Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks with traditional styled controls.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that wouldn't be bad. They could actually package that into a 2-pack, although they'd probably make it. They'd probably release them separately. What am I saying?
$800.
Yeah. Man, people. Bayonetta. See, they're still. We don't know. Still, I'm still surprised. We've been getting teased. Wonderful 101, and then Bayonetta. We still don't know anything about it. No announcements still.
I'd honestly be
A lot of times you'll see game announcements on Monday, so maybe we'll see something 2 days from now.
I'd honestly be really happy with like a Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze port, because like that's one series that I just love. Like I can always go back and play Donkey Kong.
I looked it up, and apparently that's actually still considered one of the highest rated Wii U games. And so I think if one's going to get brought over, it'd probably be one of those.
It flew under a lot of people's radar. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people missed out on that game. Myself included, which is why I want it on the Switch. So
They're very fortunate to have all those Wii U games that they can bring over under the guise of, well, a lot of people just didn't play it, so we're giving it to you guys. We're not trying to resell it again.
There was an official statement from Nintendo like a week and a half ago where they said, like, yeah, of course we're bringing over more Wii U games. They're like, we consider this a preservation effort. A lot of people miss these. The sales of the Switch are so much higher, and there's extreme demand for it. We want to give people stuff to play that they want and maybe haven't even heard of.
Ooh, Beautiful Joe 3 would be cool on the Switch.
Yeah.
That would be neat.
Grandia. Oh, man. Sorry. That's one of my favorite series of all time. So, yes. I would love to see Grandia 2. Just Grandia 2 brought over again would totally cream my bread. I don't know what that means. Oh, why did I say that?
When do you guys think the next Nintendo Direct will be?
I'm going to say September 1st. I'm just pulling random names out of my face.
September 1st. Okay, that's actually not. When was their? I don't know when was their Fall Direct last year? Was it in September?
August 15th, I think.
Oh wow, geez. So it might be soonish. It might be like a month from now, even.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, there you go. Tokyo Game Show. Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, when is Tokyo Game Show? That would actually be a time for them to do some announcements like that too.
yeah, they're gonna have probably some pretty decent announcements for the Tokyo Game Show, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I mean that's something we're not talking a lot about here in America, but Nintendo is really slamming it hard to make the Switch as popular as possible in Japan. Just because the Wii U did so badly there, they realize they need to maximize their market. They're taking that market seriously again, and so I think if they can try and advertise there and do stuff big at the Tokyo Game Show to win over more fans on the ground, definitely.
No, nothing on Rainway from what I could see. Rainway is still in this weird, we think they're going to approve it, we don't know yet kind of situation. But there's still, we still don't know what, who do you call it? Isn't it Retro? We still don't know what they're working on right now either.
Yeah.
So
Octopath footage coming.
Octopath. Oh, cool. I want to see Octopath. I really want to see that.
That I feel like we've seen like 22 seconds of footage, and I am ready for more.
How is that game 2018? I can't believe they couldn't get that game out this year. That's weird.
It very well could have been just like I think maybe Square literally had a a requirement from Nintendo of like, we have to show something. I don't care how early it is. It could be people walking through a cloudy town and like, oh, well, we happen to have footage of people walking through a cloudy town. We'll put that in a trailer for you.
I don't know. I mean, the game looks really good. Like it looks like it's gonna be really fun. I know the Smoxy. Yeah, I know Smoxy Kickstarter fell apart. I know they're having hard times.
Mother 3, yeah.
Did you guys see anything about? Did you guys follow the Smoxy at all?
Nope.
No. Okay, good. What's that?
I didn't.
Okay, good. don't do that. It was another Kickstarter that is having some serious trouble. It was supposed to be a portable, kind of like the GPD Win, like a portable computer that can play games.
Okay.
And it ran into some serious trouble.
So many of those fall apart. The amount of those I feel like I stumble upon a lot of dead Kickstarters where I'm just like, what the hell? And they're like,
the real problem is they have like $700,000 worth of people's investments right now.
Of course they do.
Well,
yeah. So there's a chance they run out of money because they have to restart. They had a breakup with their chip manufacturer.
Of course.
I wrote this video last year. Top 10 biggest Kickstarter or top 10 biggest gaming Kickstarter fails, and it was funny because it's this whole list of these games that earned like $500,000, and it looks like a super simplistic, straightforward turn-based RPG and stuff. Like all these different projects that got $500,000 or even multiple millions of dollars and never got anywhere. And it was funny because the whole comment section was people being like, I didn't even know what this was. Like so many of these projects now rise and fall so quickly, nobody even gets a chance to be hyped for them.
That's because Kickstarter, anyone can do it. Like I could go open a Kickstarter right now and promise the world.
Yeah, like the potato salad guy.
Yeah, but he actually delivered. He sent potato salad.
He did. He live streamed it. He gave a lot away to the homeless people. He potato salad the hell out of all of us.
Maybe we don't know anything about the virtual console still, which is really weird to me. Like I don't know if we'll even get virtual console this year, maybe next year.
Maybe we'll hear about it during their next direct, the fall direct.
I hope so. I'm zero speculation when it comes to virtual console now. At this point, I'm just gonna walk blindly with my eyes covered until Nintendo goes, "Hey, buddy, virtual console's here."
Yeah, because they're fighting off now their Super Nintendo Classic. I don't think they can put any of their games for the Super Nintendo Classic on the Switch, at least while they release it.
Yeah,
because they need people to rush that thing, to get it off store shelves. So I don't know. It's weird. I mean, yes, they could do GameCube because GameCube is still kind of there, but man, that's GameCube or Game Boy games, NES games. I don't know.
I would love Game Boy Advance. That's definitely my big thing. I would just love even slightly upscaled so they don't look like absolute blurry garbage. Just give me Golden Sun. I don't care if it costs $15. Like I think a lot of the PS2 games on PS4, I think a lot of those are a little bit overpriced, but I'd be willing to pay those rates on Switch.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like how much do you think that would be on Virtual Console? An $8 game? $7.99?
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing everything is going to be $7.99 or $12.99. Like I think they're going to really milk it because once it exists, everybody is so hungry to spend money on the Switch right now. You could put anything on there and it's going to get some figures. So as soon as Virtual Console launches, even if it's not GameCube like people are hoping, I think they'll just put random GBA, random NES, and it'll all sell.
So do you guys want some breaking news real quick before we go?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
So they cornered the creator of Kingdom Hearts 3, at least the director, Mr. Tetsuya Nomura, and they asked him, why isn't it on the Nintendo Switch? And a lot of people so far have said it can't work on the Switch. And what he said was, we're going to focus on the platforms we've announced because we've been developing for them for like 6 years. And then maybe we could start thinking about other possibilities with the Switch. So there you go. They just got released an hour ago. He got cornered, and of course they asked him that question. So there you go. Yes, people have asked me, yes, the Kingdom Hearts could work on the Switch if they wanted it to. Yes, it could.
In 2025.
Yeah.
I think it would be easy for them to put it on there at like 720p and 30 frames per second. I don't think the Switch would really have a problem.
Well, but it's also about the AI and the number of characters on screen and stuff. Like I always give people the example of Splinter Cell was originally made for the Xbox, and even though the PlayStation 2 was more powerful in so many different ways, when they ended up bringing it over, they had to cut out like whole buildings. They had to rework entire levels and stuff just because since they could have so few characters, it's so bad. It was such a massive downgrade.
Yeah, well, it depends because again, the processor and the PS4. Well, this thing you got to compare it to the lowest denominator there, and that's the Xbox One, the OG Xbox One, and the CPU is not that much better, if at all, than what's in the Switch. To be honest, it's very similar. It might be a little better on the Xbox One because it's pulling more power through, but it's not like night and day. Like you could probably take maybe one extra enemy off the screen and it would run similar, but it wouldn't run at the same resolution. They'd change shaders and all this stuff around.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Kingdom Hearts 3 came out on the PS4 and then like a year later we get Kingdom Hearts 3.1.2.9 on the Switch. So
well, they have to figure out if it's worth it. Right now, it's probably not worth it for them to port it because their main audience, while in America, is also in Japan. So they want that Japanese Switch total to be like 3 or 4 million before they really do it. Same here. They just want more Switches out there, and I can't blame developers with what happened with the Wii U to wait. So that's why Nintendo is doing everything they can to get people on board. So I understand that. But we've reached it's 11 o'clock, about 2 hours now. Sean looks like he's gonna fall asleep. I assume you're like under like heat stroke right now.
Not that bad right now.
Now, what's the temperature there? You're down south, right?
78, 77.
Oh, okay, that's not terrible. That's not terrible. It's a warm 68 degrees down here. So.
Oh wow, chilly.
I keep my basement cold. But that's 2 hours, guys. I guess we'll do it. We'll call it a night there. Let me go around here. Max, where can they find you, man?
Just youtube.com/Dreamcast guy. Every single week I put up a new review and a new top 10. This week I'm doing the weirdest games as a top 10. And man, I got some stuff that nobody has ever talked about that'll blow your mind. So definitely tune into that.
Good. And then, of course, I already know you and Evan, you're both working on the same type of review with Splatoon. So I guess we'll see that. We'll see your impressions on the same game, I guess, on
Tuesday.
This Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday is when the burger's up. So, yes, we'll see
early
Tuesday
morning.
Yep. Very good. And Evan, where can they find you, man?
I mean, I'm still doing work with SpawnWave for videos and such. You can check me out there. Kimmeric's Project, which I've linked so many times. That's more for art stuff, though, and also Kimmeric's Games, which is where I post videos on a game that I just can't seem to get away from called Gigantic. I do that once in a while when I got something interesting to say about it, or if I got enough clips of me just annihilating people from range. So
and you did the Splatoon preview, and then you did the single player preview, and then you did the Star Fox retro
Star Fox
look.
Yeah, the retro look of Star Fox. We also then you and I did the wrestling as well as
that was fun.
Another Switch little mini game that we played.
Yeah, you didn't like that one as much.
It's just, I don't know. It felt so trashy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I did get Death Squared. I need to play that still. So I did get that, though. Philip, where can they find you, man?
You guys can find me on YouTube if you just look up Philip, F-I-L-I-P, on YouTube. I just did a kind of preview video for this really cool Switch grip case that you can actually dock. So definitely check that out. It's one of the cooler concepts I've seen for the Switch. And then you can also find me on Twitter, twitter.com/PhilipMusin. So
yeah, you got that K now in your numbers, man.
I got a K.
Your number count.
Finally.
You do.
Yes.
You're over 10,000 followers. Good job, man. Very nice.
Okay. Thank you.
Very nice. Jesse, where can they find you, man?
Yeah, everything for me, Twitter, Facebook, everything is YouTube, or everything is Game Over Jesse. Usually focus on Zelda and Nintendo. But lately, I've been doing a bit of everything with top 10 videos, going outside of Nintendo. So there's been lists on PlayStation, Xbox, just about everything. I'm trying to not have myself put in a corner. So
makes sense. Yeah, why not? Why not branch out a little bit? Makes sense, man. Makes sense. And then Sean, where can they find you, man?
RGT85, pretty much across the board. Writings are on NintendoEnthusiast.com. We also do a weekly podcast on their YouTube channel, and random reviews go up on there. I do all sorts of content, old, new, in between. So, yeah, check me out.
Very good, very good. RGT85, awesome. So I guess that's it for SpawnCast tonight. Got a lot of stuff coming up this week on Spawn Wave, and then of course you'll see a lot of Splatoon stuff going up everywhere because Tuesday is when you want to look for the reviews. Then of course Friday is when the game comes out. So I'm sure next weekend it'll be pretty crazy with Splatoon 2 everywhere. So that's it for us here, guys. We will see you next time.